Welcome to the Nxt Gen podcast. Stepping up to the microphone are your hosts, Bryson Wright and Alex Winton. They got next, so let's get to the show.
Welcome in, everybody. Welcome to the Nxt Gen podcast. As always, I'm your host, Wright, and I'm joined by my co-host, Alex Winton. And we've got a lot of good stuff to talk about. As I said last week, I am out in Las Vegas for Summer League. Got to see all the Grizzlies games so far and a couple of the other ones. So we got a lot of stuff to get to there. On top of that, got to talk about the Desmond, Bane, and Marcus Smart press conferences out here in Vegas this week too. That's going to be another thing we're going to get to talk about. And of course, the biggest news across the NBA for full NBA news, the in-season tournament that they just dropped. It's been, I mean, a lot of people have kind of gone back and forth on if they really like it, but it's here now, and we're going to give y'all all the, basically, not the inside scoop, but basically break it down for you if you don't know what the in-season tournament is. But like I said, we're going to start with Summer League. We're going to focus on Vegas Summer League because I know we talked about the Salt Lake City Summer League on the last game, or on the last pod. So, I mean, they're 1-1. They had a really good first game. I thought they played really well in the first game. And really I thought their defensive intensity was the best part. I know that Kenneth Lofton Jr. had a good number of steals. Jacob Gilliard had some good steals. Basically, everybody on the roster was getting steals or blocks, and they did a really good job of getting out in transition. They just were dominant in transition, whether it was scoring off turnovers, fast break points. And then it was really Kenneth Lofton Jr. and then Jake LaRavia also played pretty well in that game. But also 2 big threes by G.G. Jackson down the stretch of the first game. So I think all in all, it was everything you would want to see. And then in the second game, it was more they just didn't play as well in the second game. So it's kind of you get to see everything, you get to see the good and the bad, because the good things, when they do happen, you see why the Grizzlies have invested in a lot of these guys, but you also see why they're not quite there yet, maybe just because of some inconsistencies. But I think the good thing is that all the players that you would hope to see flashes from, or you would hope to succeed, have played pretty solid, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I again, for me with the Summer League, I don't really look at the numbers and the stats. Not to say that they don't matter, but I try to look at more so of the process of how they get in the stats and all that. I'm looking you really need to look at the Summer League games to really know what they're doing and how it translates. Because for me, how I look at Summer League now at this point is what skills are scalable or translatable to what the trio do. Does it fit best around a trio? Because that's what all that matters at this point. When you have your 3 guys like you do, you need to find players that their skill sets fit around theirs. So that way, you can have success. And like you said, for me, most people that you would expect to really be good or solid have been solid. We haven't had anybody be like Desmond Bane, but I didn't expect that. I didn't expect no Desmond Bane breakout from anybody. I just expected improvement in areas. Just for example, with Jake, because he's one of those guys that could have a really big opportunity going into the training camp. And I mean, his shooting percentages in Vegas are not great. He's only shooting 30% from the field and 30% from 3. But the looks and the process of how he's getting looks and what he's taking, I like. And I want that to trend. That's what I really look at translating. Because he even said, I think he said in the post game, he hasn't had a shot that he really hasn't liked. He's liked every look he's gotten. And I'm going to live with that. Because outside of that, he's done what he's supposed to do. He's defended decently. He's rebounded all right. He hasn't really, he's been a connector on offense. Really, for me, it's about the aggressiveness. Because last year in Summer League, Jake would turn down so many shots. That was really the problem. I much rather him just take them because they're wide open shots. And we've seen him have a game where he, was able to go off. And even in the last game, I think he had 5 3, something like that, something crazy. And then David Roddy is another one who, had has been kind of more up and down. I guess in Vegas, he was probably better in the Utah Summer League. But the Vegas one, I mean, he's still been doing things that he hasn't looked too, I haven't been too concerned about what it looked like. And obviously, Kenny Lofton's played well. But this is his, this is where he thrives. It's Summer League type of ball. So I'm not really surprised that he's hooping. And obviously, go down the list of line, Vince Williams, G.G. Jackson, those guys have been solid as well. So I've liked what I've seen. There's nothing that's really made me be like, damn, I'm like concerned about it. And I didn't expect any breakout. I just expected some substantial improvements, and I feel like they showed that up to this point.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like the biggest thing I think we've talked about just coming into this was like kind of the wing rotation, because basically besides Zaire Williams, it's basically the whole wing rotation is playing in summer league. Like all the guys that are probably going to get minutes at the wing position besides maybe John Conchar and Zaire, those are really the only other guys. So when you're looking at Jake, Roddy, and even GG Jackson, Vince Williams, they probably won't play as much as those other guys. But I think what we've really seen in summer league is that the best thing for them is probably going to be to kind of go wing by committee rather than saying like this guy's our starter and he's going to play this many minutes. Which I don't know if that could be a little bit of a change for the coaching staff in general, just because I know they like to have it kind of mapped out, at least for the starters. But I think when you look at the way that like Jake and Roddy especially have played, it just seems like there's going to be some days where they're going to make shots and some days where they're not. Like that's how it is for a lot of NBA players. But it just seems like there's going to be some days where Jake is going to be better. There's going to be some days where Roddy might be better. There might even be some days where Vince Williams Jr. is better. So, or GG Jackson even. And I think that it's probably going to be more wing by committee more than having a set like this is going to be our starting three and he's going to be there every night. They will also run a lot of like Ja, Smart, and Bane when Ja does come back. This is more for like, the beginning of the season when they don't have Ja. But I also think that just those guys in general, even if it's in a bench role, it's going to be like a night by night basis. Like it's not going to be every night David Roddy's getting 15 minutes and Jake LaRavia is getting 10. There might be some nights where, Jake is just better suited. He's shooting the ball better, leave him out there. And I think that's really what you've seen in Summer League. Like when Jake has his runs, like he's looked really good shooting the ball. I know, like you said in the last game, I know he made like, I think 3 threes in a row in the second half after kind of struggling at the beginning. You saw David Roddy in Utah Summer League shoot the ball really well. And then in Vegas, he hasn't shot the ball well at all, and he's had to rely more. He did talk about in the post game too, relying more on his strength and getting into the paint and then learning kind of how to get his teammates involved on drives and to know when it's going to be his time and when maybe it's time to find a teammate. So that's something that he said he's also going to be working on. So I think that's something else that I would like to continue to see him continue to develop. But I really think that with those guys, like there's going to be some inconsistency with them regardless. So I think it's looking like it's going to be like wing by committee, like I said. But overall, I think they've shown signs that they can at least be serviceable in those roles, especially when you add in, Zaire is going to be in that conversation as well. I think between like those three guys and then, Vince and Gigi in a pinch, I know they're probably going to play mostly in the G League, but I mean, you never know what could happen. So, but I've liked what I saw from GG, and we can get to him a little bit later too. But I wanted to give you a chance to talk about like the wings too.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think the thing I see it as is kind of like how I view when X was starting, because they're like last year when Adams went down, and it's kind of like I feel like I could see a situation where they'll start one of the young wings. But like you said, it's a game-by-game basis. So basically, because I remember there's some games X didn't have it, so they would play Jaren at the 5 and Santi there, or they play smaller. So like they might go by like do it like that, which I have no problem with. I just I think, but they also could, again, like you said with the Ja Smart Bane thing, that could be the starting lineup. I think all of it's to be determined. I think that's why training camp will be important. Obviously, preseason will be important. And then obviously the first 25 games will be important because, again, they'll probably be doing a lot of lineup shuffling too in that regard because and even if it's not the starting lineup, but more so like the bench lineup, I could definitely see that being a thing. Because, again, like you said, there's a lot of people that are in that wing spot. They're banking on one of them to shine above the rest or a couple, whatever. Like the Zaire, I know, people have talked about Zaire and, there's a lot of stuff going around with Zaire with not being there and not playing. I think he was even in the video where he's walking by and everybody quoted it, which is the funny thing. And like basically because they think he should be out there. And it's just, I think he's probably to be honest, like a guy that could start, but again, I think Jake is probably, for me, probably the second guy, then Roddy, and then, like you said, probably Vince, and then GG in the pinch. And obviously maybe, Conchar has a chance. But, I think they're banking on one of those young wings to make a leap. Like, they're going to give them the opportunity to show it, especially in the first 25 games. And, like I said, training camp and all that. So it'll be interesting to see. I hope, really, for me, Jake and Zaire are really the ones that emerge, because I feel like their skill sets and what they do, I feel like fits the best for what that position would need if they are playing the way they play. But I mean, it's up for grabs to me. You know what I mean? I mean, again, it's really gonna be interesting to see what they do, because I really have no inclination of what they're going to do. Like, we could sit here and guess and talk about it all day. I have ideas, but I'm hoping they do something. But that I would like to do. Like, I would like to start a young wing, but they might start Bane there. So it'll be interesting. It's just to be determined, though. Basically, that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I still probably say they'll probably start with just some matchups and some teams where they might want to start Zaire, or maybe they'll just do kind of what they did last year with Santi, and they're like just putting Zaire in a position to say, like, we believe in you and stuff like this. And this is the other thing I'll say about Zaire. So I know like you said, there's a lot of people that are mad that he's not playing in Summer League. And like I said, I agree that all things equal, like, if he's healthy, he should be playing in Summer League. That's how I feel. But if the front office comes out and says, like they have, that, the reason why they don't want him to play Summer League is because they think it'll keep him healthy down the line, I still think being healthy down the line is more important than getting these reps in Summer League. Now, the real question is, how much of that is really what's happening? You know what I mean? Like, is it just because he's in a workout program? Is it because he's still recovering from an injury last year? That's what I would say is most likely. He's still trying to recover, because tendonitis, it's not easy to kind of come back from that. And he didn't, and even when he did come back last year, he didn't really look right. So if they're sacrificing him playing Summer League games for him to get back and be 100% at the beginning of training camp, then I'm completely fine with that. Now, if Zaire's 100% healthy, I would say, yeah, he should be playing. But I just don't know if that's the case. But I did say I wanted to talk about GG Jackson too, because I think he is in kind of like, he's in an interesting position on the roster, because he's in a position to where I feel like he has the talent to be a main roster guy, but I feel like he's going to be on a two-way contract and he's going to play mostly in the G League, right? But I also think it's going to be good for him, because it's going to make him better down the line. So when I say I think that GG Jackson should play in the G League this year, it's not because I don't think he's good enough for the NBA. It's more that I think if he goes on the Santi route by the time he comes out next year, especially when you just see what he's done in Summer League. I mean, I'm a big proponent of taking people that were high efficiency in college and putting them into the NBA on lower roles, because it shows, like, hey, Gigi's a guy who, South Carolina wasn't a good team. He didn't have a lot of talent around him, but he went out there. He had one of the highest usage rates in college basketball. He wasn't super efficient, but, he was 17 years old for half the season playing in the SEC, and the SEC defense is no joke at all. So, like I said, everything has context. So I think he's a guy that, since, he's been a leading scorer and stuff his whole life, it's not hard for him to just sit in the corner and shoot open threes. If that's all he has to do, he can do that. And he's not going to shoot, only 30% or lower than 30% from three like he did in college if he's taking open shots and catch and shoot. The reason why his efficiency wasn't as good in college as it even has been in the Summer League, I feel like he's been a little bit more efficient, like, at times, in a couple of these games. In the games where he played his normal role, I know he took a lot of shots in that third game in Utah, but it's one of the things where when he's taking those open catch and shoot threes, I think he's going to be a lot better. And I think that's what you saw in that first Summer League game too, hitting those two big ones in the corner. And I think that's something else that I really liked, is when the shots, mattered the most, it seemed like he had that swagger to him, and kind of, he seems like the guy who you can kick it to in the corner in a big spot and he'll knock it down. So I like what I've seen from him. I do still think he's probably going to be a G League two-way guy next year, but I don't think it's because he doesn't have the talent to do it. I just think it's because it'll be better for him to have another year basically being the guy for the hustle, most likely. We'll see what happens with Lofton, but he's not going to play for the hustle anymore, most likely. He's on a full deal now. So he's probably going to be the guy, the go-to guy for that team. And I think that's going to be really good for his development rather than, as a 18-year-old playing, like 10, 12 minutes a game, which is probably the most they would give him. So I do think he's going to go into G League this year, but from what I've seen in these few games, both in Utah and in Vegas, I think he's going to be a rotation player for this team in the near future.
Yeah, I agree. First, I want to preface this conversation with two things: Gigi's age, and also the situation the team is in. Gigi Jackson is 18 years old. He doesn't turn. I probably said this the last couple episodes. He doesn't turn 19 till the middle of the season, like December, like around my birthday. So like people have to understand, like this dude is very young, and not only that, this team is in a different place than they were 2 years ago. If this was 2 years ago, I'd be more in terms of maybe playing them on the main roster, having them more opportunity. But this team is not where they used to be 2 years ago. They might still be in this phase where they can develop players. But if we're talking about like the 18-year-old, they're going to make sure they're going to put him in the G League first before anything and slow rollers, and as they should. 18 years old, he needs to figure out his role in the league. Like he needs to just figure out like NBA reps, like he needs them. And so for me, I'm totally fine with him playing the G League. I know some people are talking about, him possibly being a risk. Like it's going to be hard because again, we've already, Kleiman even said it like before, like they didn't triple down on youth again. They got another young guy, but they didn't triple down on it because they know they need guys that can play now. And that's not saying they're not going to develop. Like they're still going to develop, but they're going to slow roll this thing. So as they should. Again, like because for me with Gigi, again, like I like from what I saw in the games, I liked his effort. Like mainly because I know the thing about him was like the defensive questions. Like, is he going to guard? I felt like he guarded with effort. Like he just didn't know. Like I think I tweeted about it. He didn't know where he was doing, like scheme wise, but he was giving effort. So that's all I care about. You'll learn the schemes eventually. I just need to see if you guard when if you're guarding, please guard with effort and be locked in on whatever you're going to be locked in on your matchup. And so he did that. He hit some big shots. And I think the thing I like mainly about what the Grizzlies and how they've played him is they're playing him in the role that he was during his AAU days versus what he was in South Carolina. Because most people think they see Gigi Jackson in South Carolina and think that's what the real player he is. When in reality, if you go check his EYBL film, it's like night and day. He's more at South Carolina, he's more of a shot creator. Like they had the ball in his hands, and he wasn't. Not to say he can't do that, but I think he's best when he's a play finisher, a guy that you use in the pick and roll, and he's finishing off a lob pass, or like he's done right now with catch and shoot. That's more where Gigi's excellent his talent comes through. And then the creation second, I think, is the best role for him. Being a play finisher, I think is the thing that will get him rotation minutes sooner than later. Because again, like I've said, keep saying, it's not about you being a star. Now, if you somehow become a star, go ahead. But even with Bane, he didn't start out as a star. He started out as a guy that was more of like a play finisher or a guy like a catch and shoot guy. Like he had a role, and then he worked up to being that. So he's gonna have to do the same thing, even if he's on that trajectory. But like you said, I do think he'll get rotation minutes, but I think we're like a year away from that. The only way I see it happening is kind of like a similar thing last year where we have so many injuries that he has to play. And if that's the case, then okay, then so be it. But I wouldn't expect Gigi Jackson to play a lot of minutes. Like I expect him to play a couple games, obviously in the NBA, this year, like, when we have rest days and stuff, but I don't expect him to play heavy minutes, and that's fine. Like I said, he's 18 years old. We shouldn't expect the 18-year-old to be a main rotation guy, in my opinion, because if we're talking about a team that wants to win a championship, usually don't have guys that are 18, 19 years old in the main rotation. Usually. It's very rare. It's very rare that you have a team this young being this good. So, again, it's just, I think, it's going to be a process. Like I've always said in these last couple months, trust the process. It's the same thing with Gigi. And I think it's going to pay off. He's in a perfect situation where he doesn't have to do too much, and he's going to be able to grow the way he needs to grow right on time. Like they're going to make sure he gets whatever he needs to excel. So I have no problem with Gigi doing what he's doing right now. Like I think he's been fine. Like I don't really care about percentages and stuff like that with Gigi. Like I care more about the effort what shots are you taking? And he's done that to me. He's been fine. He's been fine for the most part. So I'm very excited to see him in the G League. I will say, last thing, that hustle jersey will sell for sure. If they selling that GG Jackson jersey, it will sell a lot. It definitely will sell.
It definitely will. It'll be a good one. It'll be a good one because I think he's gonna hoop down there for sure. And then I will just throw this out. Talk about Kenny Lofton Jr. for a second. He's been, the leading scorer of the summer league team, as you would expect. At this point, I don't even know what else to say about Kenny. This is just what you expect from him at this point. Every time he's played, whether it's like in the NBA or in the G League or in the summer league, and he's been given the ball as like the number one option, he's produced. Like that's just what he's done. So shout out to Kenneth Lofton Jr. for continuing that. I think he has played himself into, I don't know exactly what his role is going to be on the team, but I feel like as a coach, they're gonna find a way to get Lofton on the court. Like they're gonna find a way to get him on the court. Now, maybe it's not gonna be every night. Maybe it's gonna be in certain matchups, but they have to find a way to get that dude on the court because he can flat out play. Like you can't say anything else about him besides the fact that he can play. He can score the ball at all three levels. He's been really good with the ball in his hands at times. Either on drives and then getting into the post. And then I think the biggest thing that he's really helped him, he's never going to be a great defender just because of, his build. He's not really taller than a lot of people he's guarding. So he doesn't have that advantage, and he's probably not going to be faster than a lot of the dudes he's guarding. So it's like he doesn't really have a lot of advantages there, but he's really smart, and I don't think it's to the point to where, he's going to foul some people. Like I think he still has some foul issues. That's the biggest thing. But all in all, I think he's been really good with his hands and getting steals. He's gotten a couple of blocks, and he's been competing on that end. And I mean, when you have guys like, Marcus Smart and Jaren Jackson Jr. and all these guys that play a lot of defense, like maybe they'll find some minutes to play, Jaren at the 5 with Kenny at the 4 and, see if you can say, all right, well, Jaren is going to be mostly, the rim protector. And that way Lofton can, we can kind of unlock Lofton on offense and then not have to worry about anything that happens on the defensive end. But I will say, like you said with Gigi, his effort has been there, and that's the most important thing. And I think that, the way he's played, even last summer league, I think he deserves more minutes on the main roster. And I think there's a chance he'll get them, especially because Brandon Clark is most likely not going to be ready for the beginning of the season.
Yeah. I think with the thing with Lofton is for me, I've always said he's like a classic skill, like versus fit and argument thing, like skill versus fit, because he's obviously a talented player, and he can play, but it's like, does he fit the best here in terms of what his best skill set is? In terms of on the main roster, let me say that preface the main rosters, because like you said, he could get minutes, but my thing is going to be where did the minutes come from. I do think you said they'll try to figure out a way to throw him in the game, because I think even Kleiman, said that during the press conference, like its exit interviews, like, trying to throw Lofton in the game and he could change the game like that, like real quick, like being like basically like a spark plug, which I could see them try to do, because in the minutes last year when he did play with Jaren, I felt like those were solid minutes for him. So I could definitely see them trying that, maybe a game by game basis. This is very hard. I think he's working against it because your team is loaded with bigs already. Like, even though BC's hurt, you still got Jaren, you still got Steven Adams, still got X, still got Santi. Like, that's 4 bigs right there they're probably going to be in the main for rotation big. And my thing is, again, those guys have more experience and things of that nature. So it's going to be hard to find him, get him real solidified minutes. But, they could find a way to do it. That's going to be an interesting thing how Jenkins figures it out. Because, again, not only that, if he's got to find minutes for Lofton, he's got to find minutes for the wing guys too, if they're playing all well and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see. I do think he's obviously played himself a chance to get opportunity, with the main roster, but it remains to be seen. I wouldn't be surprised by really anything, to be honest with it, in terms of how his minutes might be. Like, I could see him playing, also could not see him playing. This is very hard when you already got a team that has bigs, especially like an all-star big and then another big that like, it's just very hard. You're working against it. Now, if this is like a different team that didn't, okay. And like I said, if there were 2 years ago in a different stage, I could see it. But now it's very hard. But again, injuries and things happen during the season. You never know what's going to happen. So, we'll see how it goes. But I think he's been playing well. Like I said, this is the environment he usually thrives in the summer league, especially when you're a guy like, because I don't want to say it's pickup basketball, but it's a lot like that type of style. So like Kenny getting the ball, throwing to him and let him work. This is easy for him. Like this is what he does. So I'm not really surprised by the performance he's had. Like I said, with the defense, I will say it's probably been the most thing I've been paying attention to. And so he's been guarding with that. For, like you said, you can't help it. Sometimes, like the same thing with Roddy. Like those guys are kind of not weirdly built, but you know what I mean. Like they're shorter, so it's kind of like their margin of error is smaller. But if they're guarding with effort, and their IQ is there, you can kind of compensate for that. So I've been pleased with what Laughlin's been doing though in the summer league.
Yeah, for sure. And then I wanted to move on to the other news from Vegas, which is the Desmond Bane and Marcus Smart press conferences. So I got to go to the Desmond Bane press conference. I wasn't able to go to the Smart one, but I think that the main thing that I got from both of them was that, I mean, obviously Desmond Bane is excited to be a Memphis Grizzly. I think he's been like that. But I really feel like Marcus Smart is excited to get started with the team, excited to, get with his new teammates. And then he talked about how, he's excited to try to get the most out of Ja and the most out of Bane and the most out of all of his teammates. So I think that I'm very excited for that. I think that having a guy like Marcus Smart just in the room, in training camp, on top of what he's going to do when he gets on the floor, it's going to help. It's going to help a lot. Just going against somebody with that level of intensity every day, it's really hard to not bring that same level of intensity when you see somebody else, diving for loose balls and doing all that. So it's one of those things, like I feel like he'll have that kind of contagious energy from the day that he gets there. It's going to be contagious. So I think he's just going to be awesome to see what he does when he gets there. I know there's some questions about, he was a little injured last year and didn't necessarily play as well on defense as he had the year before when he was Defensive Player of the Year. But I still think if he's back to 100%, there's no question that he's going to help the team a lot. And I liked everything that he said. I think, like I said, it just really came across. He's really excited to be there. And I think it also came across to Zach Kleiman and Taylor Jenkins are very excited that he got him as well.
Yeah. To start out with the Smart press conference, watching it was the funniest thing to me because you could tell with Kleiman and Jenkins that they got one of their guys. Like they definitely got one of the people they wanted on their list. Because I think there's been reports that they want him for years, like going back to like a couple years ago. But like even Zach said, like that's like one of the dream things, like one of the dream scenarios because they probably thought he wasn't available. But like when that deal didn't go through with Brogdon, like they said, it opened up the opportunity to get him. So, and they took advantage. You know what I mean? That's how you're supposed to work as a GM. So I'm not really mad at what they did. But I mean, you can tell Smart wanted to be here too. He's smiling ear to ear in that press conference too. I think what he was talking about was pretty well or good. Again, like you said, him being in the locker room will help. I think his role obviously will change, obviously, because he'll be starting to the first 25 games. I mean, he might still be starting after the 25 game or not. Might be after when Ja gets back, but even then, even if he's not, he's still going to play a lot of minutes. Like it's not like he's one of the players that are going to play like 20 something minutes again. Like it's not like they're still going to run 3-guard lineups even if he doesn't start. Like, and I don't think he necessarily cares neither. I know people think he cares. Like Smart's a team player, and he's in a different role now. Like he understands this is the team. Like and he even said it in Boston. He kind of built that culture and things of that nature. Whereas this team he's coming to. He's already got culture. So, like, he's not going to step on nobody's toes. But, again, he's going to lead like the way he's going to lead. And so, I think he's going to be a big addition. Like, again, he had injuries last year. So, people were talking about his defense. But even then, in the playoffs, when it mattered, he showed up. Like, his defense was better in the playoffs, like, based on the numbers. And also, he shot the ball better. So, he's a gamer. So, I'm not really worried about him in the regular season. And then on top of that, he's playing with another defensive player of the year. So, I'm not really that worried. Like, I think – in Boston, he was a guy that you could argue as their third best player at times. Like it's between him, Horford, Rob Williams. Like, whereas here, you got your clear 3 best players, in my opinion. Ja, Jerry, and Bane. Those are your clear 3 guys. So I think him being like the 4th, 5th guy with less usage is going to help him out, not have to do as much, and be able to focus on a little different areas of his game. So yeah, I think he's obviously happy to be here. Obviously, the jersey's going to sell very well at 36. But also to the Bane presser, you can tell he wanted to be here obviously as well. They released that video about Bane, like dating from his rookie year to now, and he even said it like that in draft night he wanted to go to Memphis the whole time. Like that's before he got there. Like he wanted to go to Memphis. So for him to be here, then get here, then develop the way he's developed to one of the, not only just from a role player to being but one of the core franchise pillars is great to see. So obviously that was like a deal that was going to happen. Like they said, it was a priority. It was a no-brainer. I'm glad he's here. Again, like he said, he's going to be more of a leadership or in a leadership role this year now, along with Smart, and obviously Jaren and Ja. But again, I think Bane obviously deserves the money. Again, I think he's going to have a great season. Like he said, it sounds like the rehab's going well. I think he said he's either either he's ahead of schedule or right at it. He basically what he said. So, which is good news because that means he probably can get on the court in the next month or so. He seemed obviously happy to be, I'm not, Bane is always happy. Like he wants to be here. Like he wants to win here. Like I'm not really worried about Bane wanting to go nowhere. Like this is the place for him. He was happy. Obviously Zach was happy. Jenkins is happy. So that's probably the happiest I've seen Jenkins. I ain't gonna lie to you. These last two press conferences, he's smiling ear to ear. But yeah, Bane's Bane's going, have a really good season. I'm just praying that he stay healthy. I don't want to. I'm praying he stay healthy. Jaren, everybody stay healthy. We haven't had the best luck with health in the last couple of years, so I'm just hoping that everybody can be healthy at least for the majority of the time. We're gonna have nicks and bruises, rest days, but just hoping for everybody's health. But yeah, it was good to see those press conferences.
Yeah, and then I think another thing that I thought was really interesting with what Desmond Bane was talking about. I mean, he talked a lot about coming in as the 30th pick and really working to get to where he is, and I think that that's really the biggest thing. Is just shout out to Des, man. I mean, he was a 30th overall pick. And is one of the 4 players in his class that's going to get over $200 million on their next contract. So, I mean, obviously top 5 player in his draft class, all of that. So, and like you said, Zach Kleiman said it was a complete no-brainer. Like as soon as they could, like he was like, he didn't have to think much about that one. There wasn't much to think about. So when that contract was up, they knew they had to sign him to it. And I think that's how everybody kind of feels about it, in terms of people that follow the Grizzlies, because there might be some teams that might think, they can't pay Desmond Bane $200 million, but there is nobody else that the Grizzlies can go out and sign for $200 million right now that'll be worth more to them than Desmond Bane is right now. Like there's not really anybody out there on the market. Like who are they going to go sign? You know what I mean? And this guy's already been here. He's paid his dues. He's averaging, he was averaging over 25 a game before he got hurt. So there's no question that he deserves it. Like I said, you could tell he's very excited for this next season. And then also even Zach Kleiman said he's very excited for running, at least early in the season, some of those lineups with, Smart, Bane, and Kennard, where you just have, Marcus basically being the point guard, and then, Kennard being like basically the sharpshooter, whereas Bane is also a sharpshooter, but he's also your secondary ball handler and facilitator. And it's like stuff like that could look really cool on the offensive end. So, yeah, I think that Zach Kleiman got a plan. His plan's coming together very nicely. And, yeah, I mean, like I said, they're both happy to be in Memphis. That's the biggest thing. Bane also said that he thinks him and Marcus Smart are probably going to butt heads a little bit at the beginning, which is probably going to be good for him. I think it's going to be good for both of them. I think that's really how you become teammates. Anybody who's ever been on a team knows that, you got to butt head with your teammates a little bit for you to really become a team. That's how you really become a team. Everybody knows that. So I think that's going to be good for him too.
Yeah, no, that is funny. Yeah. Speaking from experience, yeah, that is very accurate. But I think that was very funny. I think but like you said, it's gonna help, obviously. And I don't think they're gonna butt heads in the sense that they want to fight each other now. Like I don't think it's gonna be that. But they'll disagree on something or whatever, or they'll compete. It might be on opposing teams, and talk a little crap to each other. Like that's gonna happen. Like it's part of the game. So. It's part of the process, but I think obviously Smart being a guy that has the experience he has, I think is going to help not only, the main guys, but obviously everybody else on the roster as well. Like, I think, everybody's going to benefit from this. And not only them, but, D Rose too, even though he didn't have a press conference. But, I think, people understand that vets are still important to teams, especially vets that can play. I always say that you need guys that can play. You need vets that can play. It's always good to have you Udonis Haslam's, but you need your guys like a Smart or like what the Celtics still have in Al Horford, like guys that have been in those situations before, have accomplished things in the league, and know what it takes to obviously get there and be there in those moments. It just kind of holds more weight. So, definitely was pleased to hear, the press conference, like I said, especially since we ain't heard from guys in a couple months or a month or two. So it was good to hear from those guys. But yeah, no, I mean, I think, the front office is happy with what's going on. And obviously I think, the players are happy as well, especially Smart. I think Smart, I know people, like I said, they was worried about him being here. I was never that worried. Like once he got, I don't know if he's been to Memphis yet, but once he talked to the organization and talked to everybody, like I think he's gonna love it here. It's gonna be a match made in heaven. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna work.
For sure. Like, yeah, there's no question that Marcus Smart is gonna love Memphis when he gets there. I think the fans are gonna love him. It's gonna be an awesome partnership, I think, just for everybody involved. So yeah, I'm not worried about Marcus Smart being on the team and kind of fitting in. And yeah, like you said with Dez is going to do what he's going to do, and I think he's going to have a really good season as well. But as we talk about this next season, we got to get to the next big point, and the last big point of the show is the NBA has announced the in-season tournament, and I don't know how you feel about it. I mean, I don't want to say I don't think it's unnecessary. I know some people said it's unnecessary. My official take on it is it's cool. I'm not saying it's really going to move, that much of what I think about the season based on who wins the NBA Cup. Like, it's not going to, change a ton because that just means you're the best team in December. It's still going to matter most who's the best team in June. Well, really April, May, and June, because you got to get to June first. But overall, I do think it's cool. So if you haven't looked at it, people have been split into 6 groups. We'll show you the groups here in a second, but the way that it's going to start is, teams are going to play, basically 2 games a week in November on Tuesdays and Saturdays. They're going to play each of the other 4 teams in their group, and then the team that's the best in each of the 6 groups are going to move on to the knockout round, along with 2 wildcard teams, which are the 2 teams that had the best records after that. And then just get to the knockout round, and it's basically like an NCAA tournament style thing that's going to happen. The first round is going to be on home floors of, whichever team has been better. And then the next 2 rounds, like the semifinals and the finals, are going to be in Las Vegas. It's going to be a really big event. Kind of like, I know, Alex, we were talking about it before, kind of like what some of the soccer leagues kind of do, where they'll have like the real championship. Well, not to say, it's fake or something, but, like the actual like championship into the season later. And you might have something else in the middle of the season. The WNBA does it with the Commissioner's Cup. So I feel like that was kind of like, a test run for the NBA to do it a little bit, was to see how it worked in the WNBA. And it doesn't add any games to the regular season. The championship game isn't going to count towards the team's records. But all the other games are going to count for regular season games, and all the other team, you're still going to play 82. The only thing, it's only going to add 1 game overall to the season for those 2 championship teams. So I don't think it's a really big deal. But like I said, for the in-season tournament groups, we've got them up right now. The Grizzlies, we're going to be playing against the Suns, Lakers, Jazz, and the Trailblazers. As you can see, there's all the other groups. I think that in terms of the Western Conference groups, I think they got a pretty solid draw. I think that West B group is going to be brutal with the Nuggets, Clippers, Pelicans, Mavericks, and Rockets. Now that's going to be a brutal one. But I think all in all, they came out pretty well. It's going to be interesting to see, what it's going to be like for them to play the Suns, just because they're, it's going to be early in the season. It might take them a little bit of time to kind of get it together. The Lakers are obviously, probably the biggest matchup that people are going to be looking forward to for them. But I think all in all, I think they came out pretty well, and I think the expectation should be that they should make it at least to the knockout round. You know, they should at least make the final 8. Like, that would be my expectation. And it's going to be weird to see how it actually works out, because not sure if Ja's going to be back at that time. You know, he's supposed to be out for 25 games. I'm pretty sure this year the Grizzlies played their 25th game on December 7th, which would be the first day of the in-season tournament. So maybe he'll come back for that game. Maybe he won't. Maybe they'll play 25 games before the in-season tournament actually really starts, and he'll be able to start then. Or maybe not. So that's going to be something that I'll be interested to look at when the schedule first drops in August. But yeah, I know that was a lot, but in-season tournament, I think it's cool. I'm excited, you know, not to say it's definitely going to like move mountains or anything, like I said, but I don't have any issues with it. I think it'll be fun.
Yeah. I'll just go ahead and say I'm not the biggest fan of this. But you're also talking to somebody who wasn't a fan of the play-in, and I get the play-in, and now the play-in grew, you know what I mean, and it grew on me. I'm more open to the play-in, especially now. Now, I still would make some tweaks to the play-in, but the overall general idea of the play-in, I'm cool with. In-season tournament, not really mad at it. Don't really like it, but like you said, I'm not really mad at it. Don't really add the game. Trying to do something like with soccer and WNBA's Commissioner Cup. So, I mean, they can try it. You know, Silver's been doing this the last couple of years. Like, he's been trying stuff, so I ain't really gonna be mad about it. I ain't gonna waste no energy. You know, hopefully the Grizzlies do well in it, like you said. Like, hey, besides the Suns and Lakers, I mean, no disrespect to Utah or Portland. I like what Portland's building or about to build. We should beat them. Utah should beat them. Lakers, Phoenix, that I probably see a split in that. You know what I mean? So, I mean, you know, I'm not really, you know, I mean, I think, you know, they'll do good. Like you said, I have expectations. I want to just lose those games now. You know what I mean? Because even though, like you said, like they, you know, like they're part of the season. Like, it's not like they're adding these games. Like, so they're still going to count towards your record. So, I mean, I want to win as many games as possible. Like, if we can win 60 games overall in the season, win. If they're part of it, go ahead. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not really mad at it. Don't really care. I almost care for it. But, you know, it's just kind of like wait and see. Because, I mean, we got all the details, but it kind of is different to just have details of it. And then until you see it play out. It's kind of like with the All-Star game when they did that, the quarters thing where they had the final score and all that, and they had like a target score. You know what I mean? Like, we knew about it, but until we actually saw it play out, it was kind of hard to not gauge, but kind of hard to see how it had an impact. So we kind of have to see it, wait and see how it, you know, progresses during the season. You know, the schedule will be interesting to see. You know, since the schedule hasn't been out yet, I think that's probably a good thing that would be cool to see. The schedule, and what games are in it, what things and games are not, and you know how that's gonna coincide with Ja's suspension and all that. But I mean, regardless, Ja or not, I mean, you know, as long as you got Jaren and Bane, I mean, I know that sounds kind of not caring about the rest of the roster, but like when you got your 2 other All-Star level guys, you still be able to compete in this thing. So, you know, it should be fun. Obviously, you know, it might be new. You know, again, I could change my mind and be like, oh, I'm all for this in-season tournament. You know what I mean? But right now, I'm like, I don't hate it. Don't really like it. Just okay, cool. Like you said, it's cool. Like, I mean, we'll see how it goes. So
yeah, like because in theory versus in practice, it's different. You know, so in theory, it seems like a good idea, and you know, as it happens, it might be like, oh, this is a great idea, or maybe you might find out, okay, maybe they shouldn't have done this. But I'll hold off on my official judgment on if it's a good idea until after the first one is over, and to see kind of like what it looks like, see how the games go and stuff like that. And because, like you said, with the play-in, at first I wasn't really sure about the play-in, but I mean, the last 2 years the play-in has been awesome. I mean, can't lie. I mean, partly because the Grizzlies were in it the first, you know, for that first year too. I think that was a really big part of it. And, you know, I think it made what they're trying to do is make regular season games more competitive, less load management, give the players more to play for in the regular season. So that's why you come in with, you know, the play-in tournament, and you come in with this in-season tournament with you win money if you win. So, hey, you should want to play. Even if you sit out other games, you shouldn't sit out games on Tuesday or Saturday in November. Don't do that because that could mess up your money. right? So just trying to get a little bit more on that. But yeah, all in all, I'm excited for it. I think it'll be cool to watch. It's going to be fun. But like I said, I'm going to hold my official judgment until we get through the first one.
Yeah. It's just, man, it's just something different. Again, like the plan was different. And so, you know, a lot of people had a lot to say about it. Same thing. You know, people have different feelings and stuff about this one. But until it plays out, you know, it could change. Or when it plays out, it'll change, you know, for some people. Maybe it won't. Maybe I might change. Maybe I won't. You know what I mean? I just hope the Grizzlies do well. Like I always say, hope the Grizzlies do well in it. That's really the main thing for me. If the Grizzlies do well in it, hey, maybe I'm here for it. Because like with the plan, you know, I wasn't a fan, but even then, it benefited us. That 1 year, first year going to the playoffs, we were 9 seed because we lost the last game, went from 8 to 9. Then we had to play in the play-in, beat San Antonio, and then beat Golden State. So, I mean, it helped us because if we didn't have to play in, we've been going home, already going to the offseason. So, you know what I mean? So, you know, maybe, you know, the Grizzlies end up winning this, you know, and it benefits them. So, you know, that's really what I care about. If it benefits the Grizzlies, all right, cool. So, yeah, that's my take on it.
For sure. But yeah, I want to thank everybody for listening to this episode of the Next Gen podcast. You know, partly here, me live in Vegas and everything. I think it was a good show and everything, man. You know, glad you could do it. And next year we're gonna have to get you out here in Vegas too, man, and try to do some more stuff like from the arena. It's gonna be awesome. But yeah, thank you to everybody who listened to this episode. We'll see y'all next week, and go Grizz.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Next Gen podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a like and a comment wherever you download your podcasts. Head over to www.bluffcitymedia.co, where you will find comprehensive coverage of all things Memphis sports and how you can become an insider. We'll see you back here next time.